This is the truth no one wants to admit. You are not as smart as you think you are. Not because you lack intelligence, but because intelligence is not what you believe it to be. The human mind is a masterful illusionist. It convinces you that you know when you have only skimmed the surface. It tricks you into believing you understand when you have merely recognized. It seduces you with the sensation of certainty while hiding the abyss beneath your feet. In 1999, a psychologist named David Dunning conducted an experiment that would shatter our collective delusion about competence. He asked people to rate their own skills in logic, grammar, and humor. The results were staggering. Those who scored in the bottom percentile consistently and confidently rated themselves as above average. The least competent were the most certain of their brilliance. This wasn't arrogance. This wasn't stupidity. This was something far more unsettling: the mind's inability to perceive its own blindness. You have felt this before, that moment in an argument when you realized, mid-sentence, that you didn't actually know what you were talking about, but you kept speaking anyway. That time you nodded along to a conversation about politics, economics, or philosophy, secretly unsure of the definitions of the very terms you were debating. That eerie sensation when someone asked you a simple question, "How do you know that's true?" and your certainty crumbled like ash in your hands. This is the Dunning-Kruger Effect in action. The less you know, the more convinced you are of your expertise. The more you learn, the more you realize how little you truly grasp. But here's the paradox. Even knowing this, you still fall for it. Your brain resists the discomfort of uncertainty. It craves the warmth of feeling right, even when it's wrong. It would rather construct a fragile castle of assumptions than stand naked in the storm of not knowing. So let me ask you, how many of your beliefs are truly yours, and how many were handed to you by culture, education, or blind repetition? When was the last time you changed your mind? Truly changed it? Not because you were forced to, but because you realized you had been wrong all along. What if the confidence you feel in your knowledge is not a sign of intelligence, but the exact opposite? This is not just about facts or information. This is about the stories you tell yourself, about who you are, what you're capable of, and how the world works. Imagine a man who has spent his life believing he is a chess master, only to discover, too late, that he has been moving the pieces at random. Now ask yourself, are you that man? The answer is more terrifying than you think, because the abyss between knowing and thinking you know is not just a gap in intelligence. It is the silent architect of your failures, your frustrations, and the life you have settled for. And the worst part? You may never see it coming. You wake up, check your phone, and scroll through the news. A headline catches your eye: "Economy on the brink. Experts warn of crisis." You nod, frowning. You understand this. You've heard the terms before: inflation, recession, fiscal policy. You might even share the article with a comment, "This is exactly what I've been saying." But here's the uncomfortable question. Do you actually know what any of those words mean? Not just vaguely, not just enough to sound smart in a conversation, but truly understand them, deeply, intricately, the way an economist would. Chances are, you don't. And yet, you feel like you do. This is the illusion of explanatory depth, a psychological quirk that tricks us into believing we comprehend far more than we actually do. It's why we confidently debate climate science without ever reading a single peer-reviewed study. It's why we argue about foreign policy while struggling to locate the country in question on a map. We mistake familiarity for knowledge. Think about the last time you explained how a refrigerator works. It cools stuff? Describe blockchain to a friend. It's like, Digital money but decentralized? Diagnosed a friend's relationship problems. He's just not that into you. Now ask yourself, how much of that was genuine understanding and how much was just confident guessing? We do this constantly. We stitch together half-remembered facts, pop culture references, and gut feelings, then present them as wisdom. And because no one calls us out, often because they don't know either, we assume we're right. This isn't laziness. This is evolutionary wiring. Your brain is not designed for truth. It's designed for survival. In the savannah, hesitation meant death. Uncertainty meant predators. So your mind develops shortcuts, pattern recognition, filling gaps with assumptions, social mimicry, believing what your tribe believes, confidence over accuracy, better to act fast than be precise. These instincts kept your ancestors alive, but in the modern world, they enslave you to ignorance. Now consider how society reinforces this. Social media rewards certainty, not nuance. No one shares a post that says, "I don't know." Schools teach memorization, not critical thinking. You were graded on repeating information, not questioning it. The workplace punishes doubt. Saying, "I need more time to understand," is seen as weakness. So you learn to fake it, to nod along, to bluff your way through meetings, dates, and debates, because admitting ignorance feels like failure. But here's the tragic irony. The people who actually know the most are the ones most aware of how little they know. Ever heard a true expert speak? They say things like, "It's more complicated than that." I could be wrong, but we don't have enough data yet. Meanwhile, the loudest voices in the room are usually the least informed. This isn't just about trivia. This is about the decisions that shape your life. The job you think you're qualified for, but aren't. The relationship advice you believe is right, but is toxic. The political stance you argue for, but can't actually defend. Every day people ruin careers, relationships, and opportunities, not because they're stupid, but because they never stop to question their own competence. In 1912, the RMS Titanic, a marvel of human engineering, plunged into the icy Atlantic. What makes this tragedy hauntingly relevant isn't just the iceberg, but the unshakable certainty that preceded it. The illusion. Engineers called the ship practically unsinkable crew, ignored iceberg warnings. They knew the route was safe. Lifeboats were halved to save deck space. They believed they wouldn't need them. The parallel. This wasn't arrogance. It was cognitive blindness, the same force that makes you trust a medical diagnosis from WebMD over a doctor, argue about climate change without reading the science, swear you're a great driver. Statistically, 93% of people do. The Titanic's crew didn't feel ignorant, neither do you. Nobel Prize-winning economists used complex models to prove the housing market was stable in 2007. CEOs bet billions on their certainty. Then, collapse. The reveal. These weren't fools. They were victims of epistemic hubris, the belief that their tools could predict chaos. Like them, you overtrust. Google searches as research, political pundits as truth-tellers, your gut feelings as intuition. The killer, quote, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." Mark Twain. Modern example, social media's keyboard experts. In 2020, a study tracked COVID-19 misinformation. Findings: 60% of sharers didn't read the articles they spread. High-confidence posters scored lowest on actual knowledge tests. Sound familiar? It's Dunning-Kruger in real time. Your uncle debating virology after watching YouTube. These aren't just stories, they're mirrors. Every time you debate crypto without understanding blockchain, diagnose a friend's marriage after one story, skip the manual because you get technology. You're reenacting the Titanic's fatal flaw, confusing familiarity with mastery. So where does this leave you? Awareness is the antidote. The moment you ask, do I really know this, or just feel like I do? Could I explain this to a child without bullshitting? When was the last time I changed my mind? You begin to dismantle the illusion. But this is only the beginning. Because the deeper question isn't, how much do I know? It's, how much have I pretended to know? And what has that cost me? You walk into a coffee shop, order your usual, and sit down to work. The barista smiles, the music hums softly, and the world feels orderly, predictable. You open your laptop, check the news, scroll through social media. Everything makes sense. You understand how the world works. But what if none of it is what you think? What if the coffee shop, the news, even the thoughts in your head are all being quietly manipulated by forces you never notice? This is not a conspiracy. This is cognitive warfare, the silent battle for your perception of reality. And you are losing without even knowing there's a fight. Think of the last major decision you made, the job you took, the place you live, the beliefs you hold. How much of that was truly your choice? Now imagine this. Every day, from the moment you wake up, you are bombarded by invisible scripts, narratives, biases, and systems designed to steer your thoughts before you even realize you're thinking them. The news tells you what to fear. Algorithms feed you what to want. Culture dictates what to believe. And the most terrifying part? You think you're resisting. You think you're independent. But the evidence is everywhere. Consider these questions. Why do you really want a bigger house, a nicer car, a more prestigious job? Why do you actually hold the political views you do? When was the last time you had an original opinion, one not handed to you by a podcast, a parent, or a viral tweet? Your brain tricks you into believing these are your desires, your convictions. But dig deeper, and you'll find the strings. Science has a name for this: confabulation. When patients with certain brain injuries are asked why they just moved their hand, they'll invent elaborate reasons. I was reaching for a pen. Even when the movement was forced by a researcher, their brains refuse to admit they don't know, so they make up a story. You do this every day. Your mind constructs explanations for your choices after the fact, convincing you that you were in control all along. But how often are you just retroactively justifying what you were already programmed to do? History shows us the same pattern again and again. Normal people in Nazi Germany believed they were moral while committing atrocities. Ordinary citizens in cults were certain they'd found the truth as they handed over their lives. Modern consumers swear they're immune to advertising while craving brands they see in ads. The common thread? No one thinks they're brainwashed, and that's the trap. Here's the hard truth. If you don't actively interrogate your reality, someone else will define it for you. But there's a way out. It starts with a simple, brutal question. What if I'm wrong? Not just about facts, about everything. Your ambitions, your relationships, your deepest beliefs. What if the life you're living is based on a script you didn't write? The answer will terrify you, but it's the only way to break free. You open your eyes, not the slow, groggy awakening from sleep, but the violent, gasping jolt of realizing you've been underwater too long. The world looks different now. The scripts you followed, the beliefs you cherished, the life you built, all of it flickers like a projection on a crumbling wall. This is cognitive dissonance at its most brutal, and it's the only path to true clarity. Think of the last time you truly changed your mind about something fundamental, not a mild adjustment, a full collapse of a previously unshakable belief. How did it feel? For most, it's less like enlightenment and more like grief. The death of certainty leaves you hollow before it sets you free. This is why we resist it. Your brain would rather cling to comfortable lies than face destabilizing truths. It's why flat earthers dismiss satellite photos. Addicts swear they can quit any time. You've probably spent years defending choices you knew were wrong. The first rule of awakening? You must become allergic to comfort. The 3 lies that keep you trapped. 1. I would know if I were brainwashed, said every brainwashed person in history. 2. My intelligence protects me. Smart people just construct better rationalizations. 3. I have free will. While your choices align perfectly with what your culture, class, and algorithms predict. The antidote? Systematic self-sabotage of your certainties. The Nietzschean Toolkit 1. Burn your maps. Actively seek information that contradicts your deepest beliefs. Follow thinkers who disgust you, then ask why they do. Practice saying, I don't know, until it stops feeling like surrender too. Become a thought anthropologist. When you have a strong opinion, ask, where did this belief come from? Who benefits from me holding it? What would I lose by being wrong? 3. Embrace productive disorientation travel to places where your assumptions don't work. Learn skills that make you feel stupid again. Have conversations where you're not trying to win. The alchemy of uncertainty. History's most transformative minds shared one trait. They cultivated doubt like a precious resource. Darwin spent years trying to disprove his own theory. Einstein called his breakthroughs thought experiments. The Buddha's first noble truth? All is suffering, not here's the answer. This is the paradox. True wisdom begins when you stop trying to be right and start practicing how to be less wrong. Now you face a choice. Close this chapter and return to the comfort of your unexamined life. Your brain is begging you to pick this option. Or step into the disorienting freedom of not knowing, where every belief becomes provisional, where identity becomes fluid, where the world stops being a puzzle to solve and becomes a mystery to experience. The first path gives you back your illusions. The second gives you something far more dangerous, yourself. The greatest trick your mind ever played wasn't making you believe you were smarter than you are. It was making you believe freedom would feel like victory, when in truth, it first feels like death. You imagine enlightenment as a mountaintop moment, a blinding flash where all becomes clear. But real awakening is more like watching a city burn. The skyline of your certainties collapses in flames. The monuments to your former convictions crack and crumble. And when the smoke clears, you're not standing on a peak. You're standing in an open field, no maps, no signs, no predetermined paths, just possibility, vast, terrifying, and exhilarating. Why do most people run back to their cages? History's uncomfortable truth. Nearly everyone chooses chains over chaos. Prisoners granted sudden freedom often experience panic attacks. Cult members rescued from brainwashing frequently beg to return. Lottery winners regularly squander fortunes to return to normalcy. Your brain craves predictability more than truth. It will literally reconstruct your memories to maintain its worldview. This is why. The same person can believe completely opposite ideas at different life stages. Scientists held onto Newtonian physics for decades after Einstein disproved it. You'll fight harder to keep a belief than you ever did to verify it. The radical courage of not knowing. True intelligence isn't measured by what you know, but by your capacity to not know and remain fully present. The Zen masters called this beginner's mind. The existentialists called it authentic being. The neuroscientists call it cognitive flexibility. Whatever the label, the experience is the same. You become comfortable with groundlessness. The 3 liberations. 1. From the tyranny of expertise, stop trying to be the smartest person in the room. Start being the most curious. Wisdom lives in questions, not answers. 2. From the addiction to certainty, practice saying, "I was wrong," like it's a mantra. Reward yourself for changing your mind. Treat all beliefs as working hypotheses. 3. From the fear of disorientation, seek out experiences that make you feel stupid. Cultivate friendships with people who think differently. When confused, don't reach for explanations. Sit with the mystery. The final choice. At this moment, reading these words, your mind is doing one of two things: building defenses, finding reasons this doesn't apply to you, crafting counterarguments, preparing to dismiss what threatens your self-image, or quietly recognizing, feeling that unsettling pull towards something deeper, more authentic, more alive. The first path leads back to sleep, comfortable, familiar, and safe. The second leads somewhere far more interesting, to the edge of yourself, where the person you thought you were ends, and what you might become begins. The last question is not, are you as smart as you think you are, but something far more revealing. How much of your intelligence have you sacrificed at the altar of feeling certain? Your answer will determine everything.
Thank you for watching this video. I hope it was insightful and educative. If you like this video, do well to click like, share, and subscribe for more insightful videos like this. See you later. Bye.